Live from Seattle, Washington, it's theCUBE, on the ground. Covering KubeCon 2016. Brought to you by the Linux Foundation and Red Hat. Here's your host, John Furrier.
Okay, we're here at KubeCon and the Cloud Native Con. This is the conference that's just come out of nowhere, 1 year old, and we have one of the founders of KubeCon here, Joseph Jack, Senior Director of Product Management, Apprenda, and Rakesh Malhotra, who's the Senior Vice President of Products and Engineering, Apprenda. You guys worked each other through an acquisition. You guys got JJ on your team, Pete Sansini's on your board. I've met Sinclair, all of the guys there. You got a great company.
Thanks, yeah.
And you got a great talent in JJ here, Joseph Jass, AKA JJ, who I remember 2 years ago at OpenStack, we were talking about Kubernetes. We were having a cocktail, I think it was on the Sky Needle up here in Seattle, and we were riffing on some of the orchestration challenges around OpenStack, and you start to see the dots connect, and Kubernetes was coming out of the woodwork, but now it's like, it's everywhere. This event here is sold out, it's jam-packed. You started a year ago, small little conference. How many people were there a year ago?
We had like 560 or so people in the first event. That actually exceeded our expectations. We thought it was going to be a big meetup, and ended up actually being a real conference with like major industry sponsors, and kind of took us by surprise. But yeah, this is a real big movement.
It's just explosion on the scene, like a flash mob, little gravity.
Yep.
Now it's kind of turning into the Milky Way of software developers. Got this gravity, and all the stars are here, to use that metaphor. But now the Linux Foundation, and now Foundation, the CNCF, which stands for
the Cloud Native Computing Foundation.
The Cloud Native Computing Foundation. We have to get it a little closer. It's a tongue twister. I keep on thinking IETF, but that's just me, old school. But congratulations. We're going to talk about that in our next segment about the community impact. But props to you. Congratulations.
Sure. Yeah.
Apprenda gets a lot of value. So, guys, Apprenda. Last update I talked to Sinclair. I think it was VMworld at an NEA event.
Yep.
Which is one of your funders. Business is going good.
Yeah, things are great.
Give us the update. And where do you guys fitting in with the Kubernetes product? What's the update for customers?
Yeah, we've been working with enterprise customers for a while, helping them build and deploy applications. And about 8 months ago, we decided to go headfirst into Kubernetes. Just saw a lot of great organic traction, as you were describing. And we made a pile of investments, and this conference has been great because we've been able to unveil a bunch of cool technology we've been working on, some upstream OSS stuff we're building around Windows, which is a huge gap for customers. People want to see Kubernetes on Windows as well as Linux. The Kubernetes Enterprise Toolkit, so customers who are trying to get Kubernetes up and running behind their firewall in the enterprise, giving them tools to make that easy, to demystify some of the tech. We're all kind of propeller heads around here who love working with the tech and love really getting your hands dirty, but customers want to get business problems solved, and that's really what the Kubernetes Enterprise Toolkit is about.
And Kismatic, which you guys kind of took under your wing.
That's right.
Some expertise there. But did you see the explosion of this growth? I mean, it brings together, it seems like timing's everything. The stars are lined up, and I just haven't seen this kind of energy at an event in a long, long time, because it's got an extra entrepreneurial flair to it. You can feel, and I don't mean like startups happening, there's some startups here certainly, but it's entrepreneurial in the inventiveness. The people here are not just developers, there's an inventive vibe. Like, let's go knock down some problems. Let's take that hill. You know what I'm saying? It's got that vibe going on. Your thoughts on the show?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is we see a lot of customers that we're working with trying to transform their businesses, and Kubernetes is a tool to help them do that. So it's not just about Kubernetes for the sake of Kubernetes or for the sake of container orchestration. It's about, hey, we want to be a software company. Whatever business, aerospace, banking, financial service, whatever it happens to be, they transform into a software and services company. They need a technology foundation that'll work for them. And so we're seeing lots of great organic, not just intent, but interest in this stuff. And literally, walking the show floor, it's literally shoulder to shoulder out there. What
are you guys demoing with Apprenda here today? What's the big showing for you guys?
Well, there's the Kismatic Enterprise Toolkit, which we demoed today and announced that I described earlier, and that helps customers deploy and get clusters up and running, helps them manage and operate this in an enterprise context. We also demoed our support that we're actually including in Kubernetes 1.5 for Windows, which we've been working with Microsoft on, and Google as well. So we showed that off. A lot of people excited about that. And then last thing, we've been really active in working on the UX and the dashboard. So while everyone loves CLIs and APIs, again, to make this technology approachable to the enterprise customer, making this easy to digest and visualize, we've been investing a lot there as well. So
and a new logo too. You got a new logo.
Yes, new logo, new swag.
I got a shirt, so appreciate it. For the folks out there, get the quick plug, and then we can move on to the innovation topic. What is the core problem that you guys solve for customers? What would you say to folks out there?
Our core problem is to help customers build applications and run applications in a strategic and more efficient manner. So as customers build applications and software to run their company, we want to be the platform, and we're helping customers realize that.
So for their software development platform.
That's right. So if you're, I've spent 10 years at Microsoft before Apprenda, and we used to be fond of saying in Pacific Northwest, we weren't even the biggest software shop in the Pacific Northwest. There's a large airline company that had more developers than Microsoft for many years. So there are
writing COBOL.
But,
older guys.
Yeah, and they're moving forward too. And all those folks are now, they need to be more modern and more nimble. And so we really help those enterprise application developers build modern software that helps their businesses generate more revenue, be more efficient. That's really what our purpose is.
Joseph, I want to get your take on that. We have this sea change, so you guys are well positioned. I'm certainly it's cloud native, really speaks to beyond Kubernetes. What are the drivers and what are the inhibitors right now for operationalizing the greatness of what containers have shown, and you're seeing some of the benefits of Kubernetes, because you're seeing benefits now, inter-cloud, cross-clouds, kind of takes the pressure off some of the platform as a service baggage or inertia or pain, however you want to look at it. The world's changing pretty quickly, seeing the industry starting to settle in on their swim lanes, whatever the metaphor you want to use. What's your thoughts on this, guys? If you could comment on, because the innovation's coming now. What are the drivers? What are the inhibitors for enterprises to adopt this stuff?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about the drivers. I think many of the drivers are related to how the world is evolving just generally. So I think there's a lot of really big macro trends that are starting to become really relevant for enterprise customers and just the sort of the industry overall. I think the sort of the core underlying driver is just the rise of usage of the internet. Frankly, it sounds kind of like a trite thing to mention and sort of like an obvious
the web,
there's
mobile.
There's saturation of internet services and APIs and applications that are being used by developed countries and underdeveloped countries, and this proliferation of the ease of access to real-time services, broadcasted over BGP over the internet, has hit a level of maturation and I think saturation that is now seeping into the way we design and build our systems just generally. So I think some of the way to unpack that and kind of think about it in the enterprise context for software development is distributed systems, I think is becoming a really important part of how people think about writing and building next generation applications. And Apprenda's been innovating and pioneering this approach for sort of simplifying distributed systems, primitives for enterprise customers for a decade. What Kubernetes kind of does is it emulates the sort of distributed systems patterns of the internet, and it lets an application developer write a piece of software, put it in a container, run it on a system that gives them a lot of these really hard, sort of previously hard to harness and use distributed systems primitives that again resemble when you run something on the internet, it needs to be highly available, it needs to be resilient to failure, it needs to be deployed in multiple locations, it needs to be kind of inherently peer-to-peer, it needs to have some sense of a distributed services architecture, whether you call it microservices or something else. So I think that's kind of the core underlying trend is people want to, so the emulation inside of the design of the internet is starting to creep into the SDLC. So that's where we're seeing all these movements from monolithic to distributed
Well, not
services.
only leaking into the software, the life cycle, but changing. For instance, you're seeing cloud change the critical infrastructure. I mean, you go back to the Microsoft days. I remember when I was 8 years old programming on my IBM, they had SNA architecture. It was proprietary. The full stack was proprietary from all the way down to the physical layer up to the top. And then it standardized at the lower end of the stack, physical and network, and then obviously TCP/IP as you live in the old OSI model. Now it's the complete opposite. The apps are standardizing, forcing change down the stack in real time, which impacts the internet, which it turns into impacting customers' critical infrastructure.
TCP/IP.
I mean, this is mind-blowing if you think about it. So what's that mean?
Yeah, the protocols. So the analogy works really well. I think we had a standard set of protocols for people to communicate and emit packages and distribute them over distributed networks. And so UDP, TCP/IP had sort of allowed that to happen for large-scale adoption of the internet. I think the same types of patterns are now starting to take hold in a really serious way for how people build distributed systems. And distributed systems as like a first-class concern for application development is now a mainstream conversation. People are now moving beyond the sort of appreciation of why that's important to now, how do we use and adopt technology that gives us the first principles way of looking at distributed systems and bringing that into our organization. So I think the adoption of Kubernetes is a proof point of that. I think it's happened at a really important time and a critical point in history where it's starting to kind of
and there's so much more impact. And Rakesh, you run the engineering over there, products, operations. You're with customers. I mean, you agree with what we're talking about. This is a sea change.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
if anything, you talked about the inhibitor. I think one of the key questions I get from customers all the time is, I know where I want to be, but here's where I am.
yeah,
So how do I get there?
Here to there.
So there's no controversy on where they're going.
There's no playbook either. It's happening in real time. That's why
Right.
communities are critical. We talk about the ecosystem. This is interesting about why this event has got my interest, because there's some real players here. I mean, it's not, there's no pretenders coming to this event, which is, I find, pretty interesting because
Yeah, and it's being driven by, again, real customer, not just interest, but intent. You know,
Yeah.
we work with customers who are running Kubernetes in production and have been for many months, who are making big bets on the tech, betting their business and revenue on the tech. And so, again, for us, it's really about mainstreaming this technology, bringing it to a larger swath of enterprises, taking the complexity out of the technology. It's overwhelming sometimes for customers. We love this stuff, we eat and breathe it, but when you go to the customer and say, here's all the 40 or 50 things that are happening in the Kubernetes community, they're just overwhelmed. And they don't know where to start. And so for us, it's about, here's where you start.
Well, they start by watching theCUBE, of course. We have all the guests and the star power, and appreciate you. Congratulations for coming here, and it's great to see you here at the event. And you get certain great backers with NEA and Pete Sonsini, and a great track record of years and years in the business. So
Thanks for having us.
congratulations, great
Yeah,
to see
thanks
you
for having
guys
us,
here.
John.
And congratulations on the great successful event
Sure.
that you started. We're a key part of starting. Okay, this is theCUBE here at KubeCon, not to be confused with theCUBE. That's K-U-B-E, as in Kubernetes, not Cube as in C-U-B, like what we do. And also Cloud Native Con. Thanks for watching. I'm John Furrier.